come back later and fill them out. But really appreciate you guys coming here today. So we're going to jump right in. So let me share my screen. And we're once again going to bring this up. So if everyone can now let me know in the Q&A box that you can see my slides properly, because sometimes it shares the wrong screen. So you're looking for single page, building a digital marketing strategy that works. Looks good. Amazing. All right, guys. Really appreciate you guys joining. I know we have people from all over, different brands, different ways people found out about this webinar today. We have people, basically it looks like close to coast. We have people from the East and West Coast. All in. You probably either signed up through Just Sell Homes, Real Estate Magazine, or even I know Royal LePage Canada sent it out to all their agents as well. So I appreciate whoever you found us here. I'm really appreciative that you guys chose to spend an hour with me, and we're going to jump right in. So the goal today is to help you understand how to build a good digital marketing strategy. And we are going to make sure that when you walk out, you're going to be able to look at this and be, okay, now I know what to do. I know what the next steps are going to be for me. And you're also maybe potentially going to find out where there's gaps in your current strategy. And I think that's a big one that a lot of people miss, is that there's often gaps in people's strategies when they're marketing, but they can't always see it. That's what I want to help you identify, figure out what's going to work for you. And especially from the perspective of like, some people marketing one way works, but that's not going to work for someone else. Like cold calling is a perfect example. Like I know people who do amazingly well cold calling, and others who they never want to pick up that phone. They never want to do that. That doesn't mean one's right or wrong. It's what's right for you. And we're going to help you build a strategy that's actually right for you. So, and I always think back to like when I started, because I did the old school thing where my broker at the time, literally this dates me a little bit in the industry, put the phone book down and said, start today. Which Dean Jackson told me, and is one of my favorite tips ever, actually start at D, because everyone's given up by then. No one's still generally calling at the D's, but the people at the A list, they've been called a million times. It didn't work for me. I tried cold calling, door knocking. I mean, I tell this joke a lot on stage, but I think I got a deal on the second house I ever door knocked and thought it was going to be a really easy industry. And that ended up being like the last house I ever got. I think I got one more deal door knocking, but that was it in like thousands of homes I knocked on. But what worked for me was the online stuff, and it really worked for me, and continues to this day. So that's kind of a lot of what we're talking about. Obviously, there's going to be some there's going to be some offline stuff because they all are complementary. But what we're trying to come up with here is figure out the clues that make something successful. And one of the big reasons I want to go through this is, like, I hear this line, success leaves clues. And what I actually see a lot of people doing with this is they actually end up looking at what someone at the top is doing and trying to emulate it. But that's the wrong approach. I'll give you a really good example. When I started Just Sell Homes, so if you came in for one of the non-Just Sell Home sources for this webinar, it's a digital marketing agency that helps agents. And so 7.5 years ago, I had a meeting with an agent who's doing about 500 deals a year. And he's like, Andrew, if we're working with you, we have to be exclusive, because as soon as we launch anything, everybody copies what we do. Then the next sentence after that was, but nothing we've ever done before has actually worked. Everyone just assumes, because he's a big agent, that you can copy it. And for example, as a big agent, I think billboards are a really, really good investment and worth the money if you're a big agent. If you're a brand new agent, billboards aren't going to help you that much. Like if you're looking at the guy doing 500 deals a year and you're at 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, or even 50 deals a year, you don't want to look at what he's doing now. You want to look at what was he doing back when he was the same point that you were in your career. Like I use the example of like Beyonce as a more of a fun one, is like Beyonce now just has to basically release that she's going to launch an album and it's already gone platinum. A brand new artist can't do that. They would have to go back to like, what did Beyonce do when she was nobody to get to where she is, and start looking for the clues from back there. Too many people are focused on this, look at what they're doing today and try to copy that. But you have to find where they were at the same point as time as you. Try to avoid, obviously, the mistakes. And what we figured out while we were doing this, especially working with agents all over, is that the clues kind of led us to create what we call the Wheelhouse marketing framework. And basically what we've done is we've looked at all the different ways people build their business, from cold calling, door knocking, online leads, paid online leads, organic, SEO based type leads, flyering, referral, like all these different ways, they all had a few key components, which is what we put into a wheel, because it's not truly a funnel because it keeps spinning. But the goal is for each of them, you want to have 1 to 3 items that cover each of them. When you have all of them, now you're able to market more effectively. So what we're going to look at as we're going through, start thinking to yourself, like, where are the gaps when we're talking about this? And now I'd say most people have the gaps in the join and convert stage, but I've seen them in all of them. And that's where we're going to really, really look at is where are your gaps? Where can you fill them in? And then when you get, like, you go to a conference and you hear all these amazing ideas, now you can take an idea and be like, okay, in my current wheel, where does it fit? If it goes into your strongest bucket that already works really, really well for you, maybe you don't have to spend the time chasing this new idea. But then you get a different idea that goes into your weakest sector. Now you can be like, great, this is something that shores up a weakness for us. Let's slide that one in and invest the time to do it. So we're trying to give you that framework to evaluate ideas as you go as well. And I think that can work a lot. So let's jump in. So the first phase, discover, exactly what it sounds like. How do people who don't know that you exist find out that you exist? That's what we want to see. They're going to discover that you're out there. And there's a lot of ways to do that. Obviously, one of the most popular in the industry and kind of the most coveted, you want people to find you via referral. That is a warm lead. Referrals, without a doubt, have the highest conversion rates out there. Typically, it's not even close. Like if you get a referral from a partner, it's great. Now, even with referrals, one of the interesting things is most people don't have a plan to get referrals. It's, yeah, like, and I asked them, like, what do you do to generate referrals? Most of the time it's, like they just kind of come, which is not really a plan. It's a hope and a prayer. So there are specific things that you can do to generate referrals, and we can talk about that, especially in the Q&A section if we have a little bit of time there. But we'll definitely jump into some of the ideas around there. But referrals, kind of that number one way that you want people to. Another way is content. So you're putting out content out there that either entertains, educate, or informs. In an ideal world, each piece of your content has 2 of the 3. And normally, like personally, what I like to do is combine entertain with one of the other 2. But even entertain on its own, like you hear all these speakers say, you have to provide value. You have to provide value. And I think a lot of people misinterpret that to be like something that makes them money, something that saves them money, something that saves them this time. There's value in just making someone smile. Like, why do you think comedians and like pop culture are so big, like music? That's not like making them money. That just makes them smile. It makes them feel good. That's value too. So even just sometimes, like, people crap on dancing TikTok videos, but if your ideal clients would make them smile to see that, it's not necessarily wrong for them and their clients. Some of you, especially like depending on your clientele, should never do those types of videos. But you have to look at who are your ideal clients, what would entertain them, what would educate them, what would inform them. So like, as a great example, like I have my show Over a Pint. I always try to make that one a little bit entertaining and somewhat educational and even informative in the same episode. But like, that's also why we bought REM, because we wanted to get in front of our audience by informing them with great content about what's going on in the industry. So that is one of the ways that like we as a company decided that's how we want to get discovered. So it works really well on that topic. So entertain, educate, or inform with content. The next way, and this is the easiest way for a lot of people, is listings. If you are busy and you constantly have listings, then that is one of the easiest ways to get discovered by people. You know, they go on realtor.ca, they see signs out there, they see ads in different places about the listing. That's what they're all looking for. I'll use the example that Stefan Contos used where he posted this listing. And I remember he put it up there, and then he was mentioning not long after that he was getting hundreds of leads. Now, this is a gorgeous listing. I believe this one he posted in the Facebook group Real Estate Hacks. But hundreds of leads off this one organically because it was so well done. But your listings, one of the best sources, but not everyone has them. And that's why I always like to highlight there's other ways to do it. But for example, if you are an agent doing 60, 70 plus deals a year, absolutely listings can almost go in every single of the 6 ones. and it can really help you out a lot in your marketing, leveraging how those are. And that's why you always hear like list to last, leverage your listings, because it's such a powerful marketing tool. Direct mail, I mean, a lot of people are kind of against it, but it's one of those things that it still works. It was actually funny. Our editor at REM sent me this photo. She's like, has anyone else noticed a increase in direct mail? Because we've been getting a ton more from agents. And then just funny enough, in that week that she sent this to me, 2 other people sent me photos that aren't necessarily in the real estate industry of all the extra ones we're getting. And it's funny because I've also noticed so many more speakers and coaches saying, you got to get back to basics this year. You got to get back to basics this year. And direct mail is one of those. Direct mail, like you have to, it works. It can work really well. It's coming as an online guy. It does work really well, but you have to be really consistent about it. One thing, if you're doing direct mail, just a little pro tip. One of my favorite ways, hold up a direct mail and be like, hey guys, do a video, post it on social, run an ad. Be like, this is going to be in your mailbox this week. If you want to take advantage of the offer in this, you can actually just click here below too. So you're now reinforcing it and helping yourself stand out a little bit from the crowd. So if you're doing direct mail, reinforce it with some ads. Another great way to get discovered by your ideal clients are memes. Some people say don't post memes. I say don't post realtor memes. Your client, like I genuinely, the first time I saw this meme, laughed. But I don't think you should ever post this to your account that consumers see, potential clients will see, because you don't want this type of impression going out to your clients. What works really, really well here is that it allows the people who would most resonate with it to see it. And what happens if I shared this with an agent, the only people they're sharing that with are other agents, right? So now if I create this and it's getting shared, it's going shared to my ideal audience. Now I live in Newmarket, Ontario. So if I was going to go back into sales today locally, I would do memes, but I say take this one and find a local spin to it. So now I'd make it a Newmarket based meme that only someone from Newmarket would resonate with. Because now what I know is going to happen is anyone from Newmarket is going to take this and they would only share it with other people from Newmarket. So now I know this niche content's only being shared with my ideal clients. So you can leverage memes in that way by making it. Now you have to somewhat be funny or clever to do it. But what I like to do is I look for like new memes that are just starting to pop. And then I just find a spin for the audience that I'm targeting. And I see this question from David about what about farming? Yep. Like basically there's a million ways to approach the discover phase. Farming's one. The reason I just wanted to give some ideas of the examples we have here, but really what you're thinking of at a high level. And like, I think I've brainstormed ideas where I've had up to 50 different ideas under the discover phase. If it's a way that someone who doesn't know that you exist finds out that you exist, it can go in the discover phase. And don't think that something can only be in one. Like there are pieces that can go in farming and even convert, farming and trust, or discover and trust, conversations and trust. You can have multiple things in multiple ones, but you want to make sure you have strong pieces in every single one. And then they've found out that you exist. You still have to get them to talk to you. And creating conversations is incredibly important. And Phil Jones has a really eloquent way of putting it where he says, questions create conversations, conversations create relationships, relationships create sales. That's your goal at the end of the day. You want to build relationships that lead to sales. And the easiest way to get that started is asking questions that lead to conversations. And so like on Facebook, Instagram, especially, stories lead to conversations. Like you can talk to a lot of agents who have a lot of success online, especially Instagram. The majority of that comes from stories. Like the clients that come out and close are not coming from the newsfeed posts. They're coming from what's happening in the stories. I believe personally the reason for that is that when you comment on a newsfeed post, it's public, everyone can see it. But when you reply to a story, it's just between you and them. And now you're able to have a little bit more of an honest conversation with someone, because not everyone wants to have a conversation out in public, like on a newsfeed. So it allows that one-to-one interaction that maybe you wouldn't have been able to have before. It's like, I love spending a lot of time replying or having people reply to my stories, because I know that that's going to lead to more conversations that I'll have with people, which obviously at the end of the day leads to more sales. And that could mean lead via referral or direct with that person. But the more conversations you can have, the better. And social, this is one of the best uses of social, is getting those people who find that you exist, get them on here, and now start engaging with them. Some really easy ways to do this, asking questions, right? So on this topic, let's say, again, using Newmarket as an example. A few years ago in Newmarket, there was a bit of a pothole on one of the main streets. And all I would have to do, ask a question, be like, who else thinks the town should get off their butt and go fix that pothole? It's a very simple thing to put out there. And you know who's going to respond to that? All the Newmarket people, because it's an easy to answer question and they're going to start engaging with that post. So I'm not saying you have to do like cheap engagement bait, but that idea of like asking specific questions is what gets responses. Or if you just put a statement like, I wish the town would fix that pothole, is not as inviting to people to comment and engage and saying, do you think the town should? Do you think this should happen? Do you think that should happen? Ask questions about people. Do these types of like roll calls. Who else feels this? Who else thinks that? Like for an example, I posted in a Facebook group when I sold in Aurora, and I was just like, hey, a client of mine just bought a home in Aurora and they're coming in from out of town. They lived in Ottawa before. It's their 10-year wedding anniversary coming up. Who here can recommend a great place for them to spend their 10-year anniversary? And that, I think it was like 120, 130 comments ended up on that post, all from local people, all more primed to see kind of my content now going forward. Plus they saw that I was an agent, even though it wasn't really promotional. So it's asking questions gets way more engagements. And yes, stories do only show up, stay up for a short time. It's 24 hours. And so stories, one of the things you do regularly, but they don't have to be as polished, which is one of the great things about them. And yes, we will be emailing out a recording to those who attended. So again, organic social, ask lots of questions on your stuff and on other people's. That's a really big thing that I think most people who run social media for real estate miss, is that just as important as what you post and how you respond to people on yours, you have to spend time engaging on other people's content. There's an argument that that's more important, you engaging on other people's and making a reciprocal engagement plan there. And when I say conversations, they don't also have to be with you. They could also be about you. Engaging on other people's content is one of the best ways to increase your followers, because the more you engage on their stuff, the more now they want to start seeing yours, because they feel they're building a relationship with you too. No one sees people's replies though, thoughts. Wade, remind me and I'll answer that one at the end. I'll see it there as well. I can go off for a while on that one. So conversations with you or about you. So this one, really important, is I like to set up situations where it causes people to talk about you, right? So I'll give you an example. And this one, I stumbled on this by accident, but I sent this bottle of liquor to, and you can see his name there on the actual bottle because I engraved it, the Nicholas Kuzmich edition. And what had happened was he did something really, really nice for me. So as a thank you, I sent him a bottle of Johnny Walker Gold, and then I laser etched the Nicholas Kuzmich edition on it. As soon as he got that, posted it on social, and he leaves it on display at his home. Now people come through his house and he's like, they ask him like, oh, that's really cool. Where did you get that? Now he's having a conversation about me. Similarly, like there was Nick Perfetta in Calgary, if anyone knows him, great guy. I sent him a bottle. He's a broker of record of an office there, or office manager, it doesn't matter. I sent him a bottle, Nick Perfetta edition on it. I would say probably for the next year or two, I was almost getting a phone call a week from agents in his office who would go and be like, Nick Perfetta edition, where'd you get that? That's really cool. And then as he's talking about me, they're like, that sounds like someone I'd like to do business with. And they pick up the phone and call me. And I was starting to get like a lot of business from his office. And it's the same thing you can do with clients. Like imagine the conversations a client will have with their friends if they have one with their name on it, versus if you put your name or your logo on it, right away when they see it, they're like, okay, I know where he got it. His agent gave it to him. But if it has their name on it, it's going to make them have that conversation. Now they're going to start talking about you. If you're going to take this idea, which I am 100% okay with, two things that I always like to do. One, you always have to make sure the person you're sending this to drinks. It is not good to send alcohol to someone who does not drink. There could be a lot of different reasons they don't drink, but do not send it if you don't know they drink. And where do you get it engraved? laser etchers. So if you just Google laser etcher near me, laser etcher name of your town, there's usually ones. The beauty of this, it's the cost of the bottle, and usually a laser etching is about $20 to $25. It's not that expensive to get it done. I've had it done in other cities. Like, for example, I was mentioning the guy in Calgary. I literally just Googled Calgary laser etching, found like 5 places, picked the one closest to his office, called them up and said, because most of these are generally like independent shops, called them and said, hey, here's what I want to do. By the way, I'm not in Calgary. Could I give you a little extra? And you go out, pick up the bottle, then drop it off at his house. I think I paid him an extra $50, and he went, picked up the bottle, brought it back to his shop, engraved it how he wanted, then drove it and dropped it off at his office. The beauty of working with small businesses, a lot more flexibility in what they're willing to do. So literally I just Googled and said, where is it? Locally, I use one in Aurora. So that's where I do it. But again, not hard. Just Google laser etching. Just if you're going to have someone do something like this, they prefer bottles with flat surfaces. So like a Collingwood whiskey, that's a really popular one. Woodford Reserve, another popular one. Flat surfaces, they prefer. They can do it on round, but they prefer flat. But it's really just thoughtful gifts that make people want to talk. Now, on social, the 555+1 rule. I highly recommend this one. You've probably heard other social media people talk about it. I just added the +1 because I like to be difficult and make it original. But this is one like Gary Vee talks about it. Tons of people talk about it. The idea is one of the ways you engage on social, it just gives you a plan to follow. So the 555 is every day you like 5 posts. You leave 5 comments. And when I say leave 5 comments, I don't mean dropping a fire emoji and moving on. I count dropping a fire emoji comment the same as just a post like. You want to drop what Facebook even refers to as a significant comment, which usually means like at least 5 words, 4 or 5 words or more. I say 5 questions. Every day, go leave a comment on 5 different posts where you're leaving a question for them, because now that encourages a reply. And again, you can start, even if it's a mini conversation, you can start a conversation. And then after that, 5 DMs to different people. I will in that also say that a reply to someone's story can count in that 5 DMs. Again, by that same idea, a story reply with like a fire emoji does not count as a reply. It has to be you typing something in, again, ideally a question. These do not have to be real estate related. They can post that they're at a restaurant and your reply could be as simple as, oh, how was it? I've been meaning to get there. Easy introduction to a conversation. Doesn't have to be complicated. The +1 is just to start seeing how far you go. So week 1, do 555 every day of the week. Week 2, 666. Week 3, 777, then 888, until you find that limit of this is too much for me. I've seen people go as high as 20, 30, or 20, 20, 20, 30, 30, 30. I've seen people get up to 666 and dial it back and go back to 555. That was more manageable for them every day. And this doesn't have to be in one sitting. You got a couple minutes, go do 5. Go to do the first 5, then the second 5, then the third 5 throughout the day. But engaging on other people's content will increase your following, increase the amount of relationships you're creating. When you're just posting stuff in a one-way sort of manner, then you're not on, you're never going to get business. Like, this is one of the easiest ways to increase your own engagement, is go engage on other people's content. All right, next section, join. So you got them talking to you. Now you need to take that next step of adding them to your database. So we're talking about how do you get them to join your database. So easiest way, actually my broker of record when I sold recommended a book to me called Book Yourself Solid by Michael Port. Great book. You should reach out. It's a little old. It's probably like 10, 11 years old now, but still got some good stuff. And one of the concepts that I love that I've always kind of embraced is always have something to invite someone to. So that could be anything from a live event. Like if you do regular workshops, you do online workshops, webinars, you do client events. It could be inviting them to a regular newsletter market update that you send out, but always have something, because you never want to go around and just be like, oh, great. You're just like, yeah, if you ever have any questions, reach out to me. No, give them something specific to get their information. Always have something that you can invite them to. I really want to make sure that that is one of the keys here. So let's give you a few ideas on the type of ways you can invite them to get something that gets their contact info. One option is a lead magnet. And I use the acronym SAGE. It actually comes from a guy you actually mentioned earlier called Nicholas Kuzmich, who's a great marketer. A SAGE lead magnet. So with a SAGE lead magnet, it's an acronym. Short is the first and most important. No, you don't need this like crazy 80-page ebook on how to sell a home to get people to give you their contact information. You want something that's like 1 to 3 pages. That's it. That's enough. A couple minute video. That's enough. And then you want it to be actionable. So an action they can take. So in the example you can see on the page is a guide on how to prepare your home for sale. Here's specific steps you can take to get your home sold. And the G is goal oriented. In this case, it's to get it sold for the most money. Here's the actions you take to do that. And then E is easy to consume. So it's something that they can download and use. In this case, they print it out. It's a checklist. They can walk through their home, checking things off as they're getting it ready. Very, very straightforward, very easy to do. Don't overcomplicate lead magnets. It has to be just enough value that they're willing to give you their email. And don't be afraid not to get phone number from everyone right away. You can think of it as this is just the initial introduction, and then things you're going to do later are going to be designed to get phone numbers and more concrete replies. Think of sometimes as baby steps, like first get them an email, then try to get the phone number, then you go to that next step. It doesn't have to go straight from this person barely knows who I am to I need all their contact information and every question answered right out of the gate. So just to go over that again, short, actionable, goal-oriented, and easy to consume. Follow that, you will do really well with your lead magnets. And then there's forced registration. This is a very common thing. I'm sure a lot of you even have forced registration on your website. One thing that I've noticed though, and which I'm sure everyone has, doesn't take rocket science, consumers hate this. They know the information's behind there, especially here in Canada with realtor.ca. A lot of them go to the same place. You'll see it on ads when people have forced registration. People get angry, they leave comments. So we kept thinking with some of our clients, like, well, what can we do to change? Because like there's still a lot of value in someone, and like the listing itself has value to get people's information. So how can we still get them to give us their contact information and remain valuable to them without this annoyance of have to register to like find out the price of the home? And that's where we decided to flip the reason that they're registering. So now what we say is don't register just to get the information that's already out there. Register to be the first one to get new information and stay up to date. So now we can say something like, you know, even started even in the coming soon period, be like, you know, we have our stagers in there, photographer and videographer are coming tomorrow. We're getting all the marketing prepped. We're doing the research on the market to figure out the price we're going to come to market at. If you want to be the first one to get the photos and the price and everything else, register below and we'll send you updates so that you're the first one to get it when it's available. We'll send you to you when it's live on the market and ready for showings. And then when it sells, we'll even send you the sold price in the email. Again, depending on your local regulations, you might have to adapt this a little bit. Because I know places like Manitoba, for example, it's not that simple. But this would be an easy way to do it. And you can do this in a few different ways. So as an example, you can take this and put it as like a sidebar form on your website. You can do it as a pop-up. Where we do it a lot is with like Facebook lead ads, for example. So we'll write the post. We'll even have links to find out more information about it. But if they click on the ad, it pops up, they fill in their information on Facebook and it pre-fills the form usually. And now that's going to push it over. So there's a lot of different ways you can approach this. And it does work really well because one thing that I really like about this versus traditional forced registration is that you get thank yous instead of screw yous, which I just made up that thank you instead of screw you. I kind of like it. I might have to use that now in more presentations, but I might word it a little bit differently. But anyways, next up, other way to get people to engage with you, newsletters that don't suck. Let's be honest, a lot of newsletters that are out there in real estate are not great. Being in the position I am where I end up on a lot of realtors mailing lists, generally I know which company's writing which ones because they're all the exact same. They have the same things coming out. It's 3 ways to winterize your home this year. They're not the worst thing in the world, but they're not winning you clients that much. And people aren't that excited about that type of content. So we look for different ways to do that. And there's a few different styles of newsletters you can do. And by the way, I personally love weekly ones, which we'll talk about in a bit later. I generally do 2 styles. Style 1, you have to be involved to do this one. Regular market updates weekly, but You're adding your personal thoughts on it. So it's like, here's what's new on the market this week and what I think about it. Here's what's sold and what I think about it. The what I think about it part is the most important part of this, because if you just share the regular stats that the board puts out, they can just get the same stats from the board. You have to add your interpretation, your expertise on it, and the what does that mean for you side of things. But regular newsletters are an easy way to get people to sign up for it, because it's going to have value to them. Now they're on your list. Now you got to convert them into clients. And I remember when I started in the industry, people were like, you have half an hour to get to a lead if you want to convert it, which even saying that out now, thinking back then, I'm like, now that they would shoot everyone who says half an hour now. Then it became 15 minutes, then 10 minutes, then 5 minutes, then 2 minutes. I've been in presentations now where they say you got to get to a new lead in 30 seconds. It's exhausting. It's that constant stress. Like, how many people just have that stress when the lead comes in of like, okay, I have to go and deal with this lead now. And then I heard this story and I just thought it resonated, which was the Houston airport. They saw that the number one complaint about the airport was how long people were waiting for their bags. And complaints came rolling in consistently. And they did everything they could to speed up how long it took from a bag to get from the plane to the carousel. And what ended up happening is they cut the time in half that it took from bags to carousel. And the number of complaints didn't change at all because people were still waiting. So then someone came up with a brand new idea and the complaints went to zero. And you're going to immediately realize this has happened to you. They made the walk from the plane to the baggage carousel twice as long. So now, instead of waiting for a carousel, you're walking your way through the airport through an artificially long walk so that you don't complain about waiting for a bag, because it's giving them more time to get the bags there and you feel like you're taking action. That's the entire reason at most airports you have a really long walk, is they're giving themselves time to get the bag there without your complaints. And I remember the first time I heard that story, I was thinking of the last walk I did through Pearson. That felt like it took me 20 minutes. And I was like, yeah, it worked. I mean, I felt like I was doing something the whole time. But let's approach this in real estate. You get a lead in. You have now 30 seconds to respond to this lead. Well, what if instead you gave the lead action to take? Because what happens most of the time, someone opts in on a website and becomes a lead. Thanks, we'll be in touch. Now they're waiting on you and they might get a little impatient. Now, what if instead they opt in to find out more details about a listing? Instead of just saying, thanks, we'll be in touch, it now says, great, we're going to send you all the details in this time frame. Do you need to sell your current home to buy your next one? Click here, answer a few questions, and we'll let you know what your current home would sell for so you can make a more informed decision. They go, they fill this out, they order a home valuation. Now you have a seller lead from it. They opt into the seller lead. You can now send them to another page if you want. This page could say something like, great, we'll send you a report on what your home would sell for today. If you'd like to get our guide on how to get your home ready for sale, you can just let us know. We'll flip you a copy of it and it can help you get the most money. It's what we use on houses when we list them, and it's a really easy way to get the most money for your home. Click here to get it. So you're giving them specific steps to take along the way. Now they're busy doing that, and it gives you more time to get to the leads. Now, you don't have, like, if you have an ISA who can always get on them, a little bit different. Like, you can use automations to get to them quicker. But you sometimes put things place like this, give them steps to do, have videos that they could watch that take some time to give you a little breathing room to take your time to get there while still providing the lead value. And I really like this method. Then there's the Dean Jackson 5-star lead. If you don't know Dean, one of the most brilliant marketers for real estate out there, I highly recommend checking him out. And he says, well, every time you're trying to convert a lead, you're essentially looking for 5 things. 1, that they're willing to engage with you. 2, they're friendly and cooperative while you do it, because we've all had leads that have told us where to go or what to do. They know what they want, they know when they want it, and they want your help to do it. So as you're talking to them, this is essentially what you're trying to check off with every lead that comes in. Because for the most part, and there are some exceptions to this, you're not going to convince someone who has no plans on moving to move. Yes, it can happen, but that's rare. What you're really doing when you're going through leads is to find the people who are looking to move soon. And how you do that is you have to be curious. You have to ask a lot of questions, not necessarily about like if someone opts in on a listing, you're not asking them like, what'd you think of this listing? What'd you think of that? Like, do you like this part of the home, this part of the home, this part of the home? No, you want to be curious about them and their personal situation. Like, why are you moving? What do you need in a home? What was it about this home that made you interested? Because it might be the neighborhood, it might be the price point, it might be the basement apartment that's the most important. You start getting that information, now you'll be able to give them more options, because maybe it wasn't that style of home, because you might say, well, I have another home just like this. Maybe it wasn't the style, maybe it was something else about the home that interested them. Now you can find out. Or maybe you have an option they hadn't considered. Well, what you're trying to do by asking questions is to get to a point where you can go for a close by saying the line, because of what you told me, here's what you should do next. When I heard this from Phil Jones, it was one of my favorite sales tips I got, which is, anytime you're in a sales conversation, you can't close until you can say those words, because of what you told me, here's what you should do next. And what you're trying to do when you're converting people is to have them look at you and think, this person gets me and my situation. If you try to go for a close before they think that you understand their situation, your life is going to be a lot harder. It's going to be way less likely to get that close. But if they look at you and be like, okay, this person gets where I am, they understand the position I'm in right now, I think they're the one to help me because they get me. That's what you're trying to accomplish. Now, for those people who aren't ready to go in the near term, you can define near term, whether that's 2 weeks, 2 months, you choose. But really what you're trying to do is people ready to move now, people ready to move not now. Because people who aren't now might tell you, well, you can follow up again, like, I'm probably going to move in 2 years. And then 3 months later, they bought a home. People's timelines change. But if they're not ready to go now, send them regular content. And this is where I love a weekly email. Weekly emails sound like a lot. Every time I suggest this to someone, I always hear this like, okay, that's too much. I don't want to be in their inbox that much. It works. And I send actually 5 emails a week out between Just Sell Homes and REM. It is not too much if it's good information. They need the good information part of it for it to work. So that could be, here's just new listings coming up and what I think about them. I like that added better than like the standard one that comes out from REM, or not from REM, from like your MLS. But like once a week sending like, here's the notable listing, or it can keep it really simple. Here's the deal of the week. You don't have to go any past, like, here's what we think is the best deal on the market right now. And here's why we think it's the best deal. Going through that route of like, here's something regular that you can get of value, it keeps them up to date. If you don't want to do that, you can also say, here's what's going on in the community. Because someone who's bought and sold and they're finished, they're now going to be in the home for the next 10 years. Community-based newsletters will still keep in touch with them for 10 years that they can find value on. Because now you're keeping them up to date on what's going on locally. And they're going to like that. Then you just, within those community updates, you sub in some real estate content here and there. And you can put a little bit subtle calls to action in there. One that I love is like, when you're ready, you can book a call with me, and I send them to Calendly. And what works really well with Calendly is, because like if you use Calendly, which is a tool that hooks into your calendar, shows when you're open, and allows people to book right into your calendar and book a call with you. But if you buy it on default, just like the default is a 15-minute meeting, a 30-minute meeting, a 60-minute meeting. Go in and change the name of them all and create new ones. So for example, you can do like buyer appointment, seller appointment, in-home buyer appointment, in-home seller appointment, and a little bit more like better wording than seller appointment, book a free home valuation, virtual, in person. For anyone who's in recruiting or just gets a lot of the calls from friends and family being like, I'm thinking of getting a career in real estate, can we talk? You can have a link that says, considering a career in real estate, click here to pick my brain. Now you can, even for that one, because I know especially the bigger you get as an agent and the more public, more people come with that type of thing. You can set limits on how many of those can be booked and how quickly they can be booked. So again, gives you a lot of flexibility in controlling your schedule while having people booking calls who are going to self-filter into the place that fits them the best. So using something like this can help that a lot. Then you've started converting them. You still have to, just because even if they've signed, you still have to keep earning their trust. Like, I can't tell you how many agents I talk to who they say that one of the things that earns the most trust with the client is when you tell them not to buy a home. Well, guess what? That happens after you've already converted them, right? So you want to look at what can I do to earn people's trust? And there's a few different ways to do that. And this can happen at different stages. So for example, this video that we did a few years ago, or 4 years ago, it's right there on the screen. How to certify compliance on a disapproved Facebook ad. This was a major problem when this was first launched about, again, 4 or 5 years ago from Facebook. We had to certify you're compliant with local laws or they'd reject everything. Literally all it was, did you go somewhere, click one button, click another button, it was done. But you had to know where to go. So, and I filmed a video for a client. I was like, other people would have this question. Took that video, 3 minutes long, threw it up on YouTube and did nothing else with it. 28,000 views. And every single person that came through that video, they had a frustration. They went onto Google, how to fix this. They ended up in the video, they fixed it. And we got a lot of business from this one because we earned their trust by just right away fixing the biggest challenge, running an ad themselves. And then eventually, as they're like, wait, he solved that easily. Maybe he could do the rest of our Facebook ads. And it's similar to you, like, what are these points in a process where there's frustration? Like, as an example, one of the things I love, if you guys know the Charlton Advantage team, Chuck and Melissa out in Milton, Ontario. One of the things they do is like, it's a simple gesture that gets people's trust because it shows they're thinking of them and looking out for them, is like 1 or 2 weeks before they move, they send fragile stickers because they know typically that it's that those last pieces are the fragile ones that you pack. So they send them fragile stickers. It's a little gesture that earns people's trust because it shows you're thinking about them at the right time. But where can you also earn people's trust? Great way to do this is client testimonials. You can do these, like this is a Rank My Agent one. I personally, I use either Rank My Agent or just plain old Google reviews. I actually hate the Facebook review system. So like even on the Just Sell Homes page, I just turn it off. Half of them end up being like people promoting crypto and stuff like that. And Facebook's a pain to deal with to get rid of those. They will, but again, more of a pain than it's worth, I found. But Google reviews help with your organic ranking. So it's worth it. A tool like Rank My Agent, they also do a good job of having it rank. So typically if I'm getting reviews, I'm pushing them to one or the other. And then it's also about like how you're asking for it. Is it true if a client does not have an email address, they can't leave a Google review? I believe so. Yeah, they have to have a email address. If they don't have one, help them set one up. And not every review has to be done that way. Like you can have them set up Gmail. Yes, I believe it's a Gmail account they have to do. Real Satisfied reviews versus Rank My Agent. I'm going to be transparent. I haven't used Real Satisfied that much, so I can't offer like a lot of head-to-head comparisons. Like most tools, it's the one you're going to use the most, as cliche as that is. I don't like spreading reviews across a ton of them. I'd rather stack them all in one spot. And it's one that ranks well, which I believe Real Satisfied does rank, and I believe it does integrate with like realtor.ca. So it's not that like I'm saying here rank like one's better than the other. I personally, because I see this a lot coming here, Rank My Agent versus Rate My Agent. I mean, on a personal level, I prefer Rank My Agent to Rate My Agent. Part of that, just to fully acknowledge my bias here, I really like the owner of Rank My Agent. She's a lovely woman. Her and I have been at conferences together. I think she's a good person who tries and has agents' best interests at heart there. And I just don't know the people that Rate My Agent. I mean, anecdotally, I personally think the Rate My Agent product seems better, but I'm not going to sit here and say one's better. But pick one place typically and go hard on it. Like try as quick as you can to get to like 100+ reviews, and ask your clients for them and ask them to leave specifics. Like it's so much better when you're asking for reviews. Don't just say like, hey, could you leave me a review? Be like, hey, would you mind leaving me a review? Clients love to hear about, how you felt about my communication and the results. And just as a reminder, here's the results that there was. This many showings, this many offers. You got this much more than you expected. That will help them write the review better because you're giving them some ideas on what to write. And then in the trust building stage, I also like case studies. This is a really good way to do it as well. Case studies, so like if you go to any consumer forum where they see like sold over asking, they basically blame agents on like, oh, you just under, like even if you listed a home exactly where you thought it to the dollar would sell, and it's still sold 100,000 above that, consumers will assume you listed it for 100,000 under. That's just the assumption now. And they hate when realtors do that. So even just on that angle, I don't love the like 100,000 over asking. If you got to do that route, I say sold for 100,000 more than the seller thought they would get. Slight change in language that really changes how you think about it when you say more than the seller thought they would get, because then that implies it's not about us under listing, it's we got more than they thought. But what I like for solds is doing case studies. So tell the story of how you sold the home. And I like to do it especially like from the client's perspective. Like think of Story Brand where they talk about that, and it's basically that, you know, same every story you hear out there. I'm a big nerd, so I'm gonna use Star Wars. They're the Luke Skywalker of the story. Your clients are Luke Skywalker. You're Yoda or Obi-Wan, helping them along the path. So as an example, I always use John and Sarah as my fake names. I'll be like, John and Sarah came to me because she was pregnant. They're having this baby. They're both working from home now. So they don't have enough room. They need a bigger home. So their friend recommended they called us. We came over. We looked at their home and we said, you know, here's 5 things you got to do before we get this home ready for sale. We actually jumped in and took care for the 5. One was on them. And they did that very well. And then our team came in and we staged the property. We got all of the photos done. We got the video done. We did the Matterport tour. We did this, and this. We got it ready for sale for them. Then we knew this home was going to sell fast. We sent our clients to an Airbnb for the weekend. We kicked them out of the house. And now we got 32 showings that weekend, 7 offers, and they got $100,000 more, which they're now able to help put towards the brand new nursery at the home we just helped them buy. Thank you so much for John and Sarah for putting your trust in us. If you'd like to get similar results, click here and book a time to chat with us. That is way more powerful than, hey, we sold over 100,000 over asking. Would you like to join us too? Now, on one specific thing here, which always comes up, do not share client stories without their permission. Before you even write the case study, ask. If they say no, ask if you can do it without identifying information. If they still say no, don't do it. If they say yes, but I want identifying information, you can even change things. I would just put like, we've slightly changed this to hide identifying information, but the general theme is still correct. Also, use your judgment on should the story be shared. In the scenario I made up there where John and Sarah are having a baby, they just need a bigger home, great, share that story. If it's John's been cheating on Sarah, so they're getting a divorce and they need to sell their home and it is not pretty, you're not going to share that. You're just going to say our clients needed to sell their home, right? Like use your judgment there, but always get permission to write it. And then after you write it, send it to them for a final approval, because you don't want them to take it and be like, yes, give you permission, and then read it and be like, nope, I hate that. You still want the permission all the way along. And then in terms of like where you advertise this, basically anywhere you can. Like social's obviously great for this. Your newsletter is great for this. I also put it into a PDF. And eventually your goal is for every type of home and type of person you deal with over time, you should have a case study. So that when someone reaches out from like a particular neighborhood or a particular type of home, like if someone comes like, hey, I got this old Victorian home. Do you have an experience selling one of those? Yep, actually, here's a PDF of a case study of us having sold a Victoria home just around the corner from you, right? Like you want to have this type of proof, and you can put them all over. You put them on your blog. So you have a section on your website for case studies. You have PDFs you can send to people. You put in your newsletter. You put shorter versions on social that then lead back to the blog posts on your website. Repurpose, put it wherever you can. And you can even do these as video. It doesn't have to be written either. If you're a terrible writer, gather all the details up about it, head over to Chat GPT, which if you're not using it yet, huge thing. I'm looking at doing a session soon if people are interested. I'm happy to do one. I think our next webinar is going to be on Facebook ads, but if you guys want, I'd be happy to do a Chat GPT one first and then go to the Facebook ad one. I'll let you guys let me know after which one you'd rather do. Maybe I'll see if I can put up a poll. But go there, put all the details and say, write me a story-based case study using all these deals of a home sale with a client. They will take what you wrote and turn it into a beautiful case study for you that you can then just do some minor edits and post. Is it better to use a bit.ly link in a social post to take them to the post on your website? It can be. It depends on where you're putting the link. Like take Facebook, for example. You can actually paste the link, have the preview show up, delete the link entirely, and it's not even has to be in the post at all. Instagram, you can't put a link, so you're doing link in bio, which point you're kind of hiding the links. It doesn't matter anyways. But then it's also, do you want to use the analytics from Bitly? Basically, there's a lot of ways you can do it. There's not like a, hey, this way is definitively better, but basically don't overthink it. Done better than 100% perfect in this scenario. The other way to earn trust is borrow someone else's. You've seen this a lot of top producers, for example, hiring Barbara Corcoran. It's not cheap to get this endorsement. You also see people do it like Scott McGillivray, but basically you're borrowing someone else's trust to add trust to yourself. You don't need to use the big names for this, for example. You can go just to local business owners that people might know and do something with them. Like, for example, I have my show Over a Pint. If I went back to sales, I would do the same thing locally with local business owners, because I know when they share it to their network, some of that trust is automatically going to be moved over to me. Not all of it. You're never going to get all that trust over to you, but it does help build your trust. Like when people recommend you, there's trust that comes with it. So how can you leverage other people's trust? Outside of that, there's tools like Cameo. If anyone's familiar with Cameo, Cameo, you can pay anywhere from like 100 to 500,000, 2,000, and celebrities will send you endorsements. Like Kevin O'Leary will basically say anything about anyone's business that they want. I know an agent in Toronto who had Ice Cube film one from like the set of, I think it's NCIS, Law and Order. Anyways, whichever one Ice Cube's on, filmed a video being like, this is my trusted Toronto agent. Anytime I need a condo or something to buy in Toronto, that is the guy that I go. And I'm pretty sure he has never actually bought a condo in Toronto. Like there's ways around this that work. But you can always borrow the trust your audience has with someone else to get a little bit of your trust for you. Now you've got their trust. You have to earn their long-term loyalty. There's a lot of ways to do this. This is one where a lot of people fall down, especially where we notice this the most. People who are heavy reliant on lead gen, like the majority of their business comes from online leads, end up not focusing too much on the client side of like repeat and referral. Like I know there's an agent that does hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of deals a year off online leads. But 87% of their business is from new leads and only 13 comes from old leads. That's like, and then I know people who are the complete opposite. 90% is repeat referral. And so like, that's an easy thing. Like if you're getting a ton of leads and you're converting them, one of the biggest growth levers now for you is to increase your repeat and referral. So one of the easiest ways to do that out the gate are client events. My personal recommendation for client events is 4 a year, 1 per quarter. The way I personally like to lay it out is quarter one, your big event. I like to make it somewhat charity focused. And what I mean by that is it doesn't have to be like 100% of charity, but like rent a movie theater, rent a skating rink, rent something like that. And the cost of admission is like a donation to the food bank or a different cause that's close to you. But I am a big fan of the food bank angle because it's easier for them to bring like a can than just straight asking them for money, I find. So I'm a big fan of that type of event in Q1, and just get creative and make it something your clients will want to go to. Q2, again, this depends on who your clientele is. I love doing family photos or just basically hire a photographer, find a nice venue, and that could be a park. It could be you can rent a space, but just send a message to your clients and say, hey, I booked a photographer, free family photos. Let me know when you're available. We can book you in and out in 15 minutes. And they know every year they're going to get up-to-date family photos. Like, for example, my wife, she buys them every year. I know that she would certainly love a real estate agent who basically did that for her every year. And she knew that she didn't have to think about it anymore. And then Q3, I like to do more of a social event and generally no kids, where it's like, hey, meet at this new brewery in town. I'm going to buy the first round or the apps, but just come get to know people, socialize a little bit, invite your A clients and get them talking to each other, get them to make them friends and introduce connections there. And then Q4, I also like going back to the photo idea. But this time I often, again, depending on your clientele, I'm a big fan of like Santa Claus photos or holiday focused photos. But the Santa Claus one, if that's your clientele, works really well too, from the angle of like, hey, do you want to, instead of waiting 4 hours in the mall, I've hired a Santa photographer, have a little setup, come, you're going to be in and out in 15 minutes and you're going to have a great family memory. But something, again, small. So your client events don't all have to be these big things, but that's right there. 4 events a year in person that everyone would be interested in attending. Plus you have the invitations and the follow-up thank you after. Those are extra touches all year long that they won't be annoyed by. Then there's topic of orchestrating referrals. So this is one where it's simple. And I just like, this really helps if your database is organized with like the neighborhoods people live in. So if you have a buyer like looking in a neighborhood, for example, send an email to all your clients who live in that neighborhood. And I'll say is like, hi, I'm working with a buyer right now, client of mine, who's looking for a home in your neighborhood. Nothing on the market right now is working for them. Have you heard of any neighbors thinking of moving? ? Send, end of email. It's not a long one, so for them, it doesn't feel annoying because it's not like 1,000 words they have to read. It's just a quick, hey, I'm trying to help someone out right now. Have you heard of anyone? Because if you ask them, would you consider moving? Now it feels a little pushy. Now they feel put on the spot. But the have you heard of anyone for them is an easy dismiss, so it's not annoying. It's like, no, haven't heard anyone. But maybe tomorrow they're at the mailbox talking to a neighbor and think, oh, you are moving. My agent actually just messaged me because they had a buyer. Why don't I connect you with them? Now you're orchestrating these potential referral scenarios. Again, you're getting people to have conversations about you. You should aim that every year, 1 to 3 of these emails out to your database. Again, do not send these if you don't actually have a buyer. On the flip side, you'd be like, hey, I'm actually listing a home around the corner from you next week. If you have any friends that you've heard of that want to buy in the neighborhood, let me know. Maybe we can get one of them in there first and, basically help pick your next neighbor. But it's those little things, again, short and sweet emails. They're not meant to be long because the longer they are, the more intrusive they feel. And you're asking, have you heard of anyone instead of would you? Because that puts them on the spot a little bit more. Another one I think every agent should be doing are annual CMAs. So on the anniversary of their purchase, you just send them a simple email. Hey, just want to give you an update. Congratulations, it's been another year. When you bought, or last year when I sent this, or if you bought a year ago, when you bought, it was worth this. According to the home price index, or home prices are up, say 5%, which means an extra $50,000 in home value for you, which means now your home is worth this. Unless you've done anything to raise or lower the value of your home in the past year. If you have, let me know, and I'd be happy to come by and take a look and let you know what an adjusted amount for your home worth would be. Then I normally end it with like, now that you have this extra equity, and I know about a year ago, it's gonna be a little bit of a tougher conversation where now they're a lot lower, but you'd be like, now with this extra equity, here are your options for moving forward. You can take some of that equity out, buy an investment property. You can take some out to do some renovations. You can go on vacation. You can just keep building equity. You don't have to do anything, but give them the options. Same with if they are underwater now. Sometimes you have to have these tough conversations to build that loyalty to people. Like, here's what you can do. Now, and that you have to be a little bit extra careful to make them know, like, the sky's not falling. But if it is, you're still there to help them. You're there to do your best to help them out of any situation real estate related that they're in. But annual CMAs are a great tool to always stay up and give them that constant value. So that's what we're trying to do. Build out this client life cycle, bring them through this. Because, like, as an example, you got a buyer, they discover you exist, you start talking to them, they join your mailing list, they convert into clients, you've earned their trust and their loyalty. Now they're with you for a long time. Then they discover some investment opportunities. They start talking to you about investments. They join your investment deal of the week email, and it can keep going around and around and around. But make sure when you're looking at your strategy that you have something in all of these. And that way you can have your blueprint. And this also helps with staff communicating to them what there is. So now you can look at it and be like, hey team, like, here's our marketing strategy. Here's the tactics we're doing under these. And so when you're doing things, think of how does it fit into all of these. I also create a little PDF here if you want. Just point your phone at the screen onto the QR code. I believe, given the popularity of QR codes the past couple of years, you should all know how to do this. But it's a fillable PDF. It's a one-pager. You can just go in and write down the things that you have for each of the sections, and it's just a quick visual. You'll know exactly where you are. The other way I like to use this is to take it and put it, if you have a team, to communicate where that is for everyone. And yes, Conrad, a copy of this will be sent to everyone. What do you recommend to add in the cover letter for an annual CMA? So I actually often don't do it as like a printable PDF. I like to do it as like a text-based email often. You can do like a full CMA if you want, but a simple, hey, home prices in your area are up 6%. Here's the extra equity that means for you. You can offer then to give them one, and they can work. Again, there's a lot of ways to approach it, but there's not a right or wrong. It's more the act of you doing it and giving them that information. Packaging it up in different ways can have value. I would often like the full cover letter and big CMA. I might do more in the scenario where they're like, hey, I actually have done work to my home or something like that. Can you let me know what it's worth? And now you're going into that more formal big one. But there's thousands of ways to set this up, right? Like, you can take different approaches to it. You can go, 2 things here, 2 things there. They all go together. Thousands of ways to do it. I'll stick around the quick pitch. If you want help figuring out how to do this, we help 2 to 3 clients a month implement this in their business. So we help you figure out what yours is, and then we actually go and implement it for you. It's an 8-week program, but because we only take a couple clients, we do it by application. So if you are interested, you can go to jshapplication.com and we will be able to help you out with that. But otherwise, I'm happy to stick around for questions. I see there are some, so I'll start answering the questions, but that is the extent of my pitching. Is if you want our help, we can help you. All right, so what do you recommend to add in the cover? We just answered that one. Better to send CMAs in direct mail or just email? I generally, like, a lot of times, partially depends on the client, right? Like an older client, it might be better to do it as direct mail. A lot of time, email's fine. It can even be a text message, right? Like, again, don't overthink the little tactics, more about getting the information in the way that they want to receive it, and is also efficient for you. If you only have to send one of these every now and then, not a big deal. But if you have to say send out, 500 of these a year, you got to be a little bit more efficient and find a system that works for you. What is the best way to get online leads for new agents? Ask someone in your office who has a listing to borrow it, run Facebook lead ads, and you can get lots of leads. Also don't discount joining a team for a year or two that will feed you leads. How I got a lot, actually, interesting enough, is I just went to every top producer in my office and said, give me your old leads. I'll work them, the ones that you aren't working anymore, and I'll give you 50%. Well, my first couple deals actually came that way. Thank you, Grace. Yes, we will send a recording of the session to everyone who attended. So as soon as we're done, I'll get that uploaded and sent off. All right, thanks. Thank you. Great. Okay. Let me know in the question there. And I know a few answered it already. So I was thinking for the next one is how to get leads off Facebook ads as the next webinar, because I'm going to start doing these more regularly. Would you rather me do that or a how to use Chat GPT or another AI writer? I just happen to like Chat GPT best. Let me know, and I will do whichever one seems to get the most answers. And I will do both. So just to be very clear, I'm going to do both, but one will obviously happen first. Facebook ad, both. ChatGPT, chat, both. Thank you. Thanks. Both, chat. So, everyone wants both, but it looks like ChatGPT is the overwhelming answer here. And it's not even close. Chat. Okay, so the next webinar, I will send out a date soon. So depending on how you signed up for this, like if you signed up through Just Sell Homes, our newsletter goes out every Tuesday. If you're on that newsletter, it'll be in there. If you are on REM, so Real Estate Magazines, we will generally promote it in there, but I only promote it in there if I haven't sold to another advertiser. So I just take the open ad slots. So on the, if we sell out, I won't announce it there as much, but you will always get it if you're there. How do you get on the newsletter? JustSellHomes.com. You'll see the boxes there. Actually, if you sign up for this, you might always get it. There's a style 2 for newsletters. Which one is that? Oh, so when you're doing newsletters, there's 2 styles. One is like real estate focused. So this could be deal of the week. It could be here's the new listings that came on and what I think about them. But basically something that's just value about the real estate with your thoughts on it. Option 2 is community focused. So now it's just like what's going on in the community. Ruth. Oh, thank you, Ruth. That's very nice of you. Rupinder, how to do chat. All right. So, it's overwhelming. The next one is 100% going to be Chat GPT because that seems to be what everyone, but I will say this, I will do the Facebook one. Maybe I'll speed it up so that we're going to do that one. I think we'll do them closer. And because I was thinking of doing these monthly, but maybe I'll do both of those next month. And by that, we're February, so I actually mean March. So we'll do 2 in March. Because I'm going on vacation at the end of the month and I'm not bringing my computer for the first time in a long time. So that's what I'm doing. So thank you for coming. Appreciate it, everyone. Again, if you guys want to stick around for any questions, I am happy to answer, but it looks like the questions are slowing down now. But I appreciate you guys joining. Again, if you should be on our mailing list, it goes out every Tuesday. REM goes out Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We will be announcing future ones. You can follow me on social. You can follow Just Sell Homes or Real Estate Magazine on social too. We always post it there as well. But we will be hosting more of these. They will be free. Generally don't charge for these, but if you want help with any of your online marketing, again, you can reach out to us. If you want help with the strategy or even just running your Facebook ads or advertising a single listing. Again, I do really hard sells here. But again, thank you everyone for Do you guys design and take care of email newsletters? Yes, we have a program where we will write and send your weekly newsletters, and they're custom to you. We're happy to chat about that if you send me a message, and we can take care of that for you. So again, appreciate all the nice things everyone's saying. I always appreciate good feedback and letting you know, because this is a newer presentation for me. But I really appreciate all the feedback. Everyone, I'm glad that you guys found value. So thank you again for attending. If you want to book a call with me, reach out. Bookandrew.ca also goes to my Calendly, and we can book a time to chat. But again, thank you everyone for attending. I will set up the next one, how to use ChatGPT, and we will get that up and going. So thank you everyone, and I will see you later.